They move it up over the line. A long pass by Mikhailov didn't work. Cleared in front of the net on the boards. And Philadelphia, two-man break again. A breakaway. Leafs going ready to goal. Goal! Beautiful goal by the Leafs. Terrific.
Pretty good job of interference run, too, by Gary Dornhofer, but Rick McLeish is an excellent shooter. Not too often, Dennis, you'll see the Soviets get caught like this. Here it comes. Watch the interference on the part of the one flyer right there as he moves over at the line. Here's McLeish. Perfect spot.
Hey everybody, it's Isaiah, and I'm here with Chef B, who's going to tell us about one of our sponsors here. Chef?
Yeah, O&B Puckcast is now brought to you by Summit Public Adjusters. The winter months can be especially hard on our homes, from roof damage and peeling siding to frozen pipes and toilet overflows. Call Summit Public Adjusters before you call your insurance company. Dealing with your insurance company can be stressful and confusing. Let Summit Public Adjusters take the stress out of the claim process by having our guys work for you. Get the most for your money and your repairs. The next time the big snow or the rain leaves you with some home damage, contact us for a free consultation. Summit Public Adjusters are licensed in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Learn more at summitpublicadjusters.com or call 215-752-0560. Just tell them that the chef sent you.
Yeah, what was that number again, Chef?
215-752-0560.
That's terrific. All right, we're going to carry on with the rest of our show. And we are back. It is Isaiah. Welcome to the O&B Puckcast, episode number 202. As the Flyers are out west, they have the ignominious distinction of losing to the San Jose Sharks. I'll give my opinion, and we'll have the panel to weigh in on that. A little preview. You know, the Flyers play them a couple weeks ago or a couple weeks from now. They probably beat them, but they're in a grind right now and a little bit of a gully. It's going to happen. This is a rebuilding year. Okay, I'll stop it. Okay, so this show was brought to you by FlyersNittyGritty.com. And let's introduce our panel with a reminder that the great Dan Silver is on work assignment, will not be joining us. We have a guest panelist we're going to bring along directly. But first, I just want to say hello to the chef to my left. What's the word, man?
Mediocrity. That's the word. That's what we've been suffering through the last several years. Thought we were getting out of it with a good start to the season with some hope. But now seems like we slip back into our old ways, and we'll see what happens next now.
Well, the Flyers are winning Corsi awards and expected goal awards. I mean, that's all that matters, right? Anyway, and pinch hitting tonight, we're so glad to have from High and Wide Radio, James Iacovone. James, what you got? You got all these projects you're doing, scouting for daubers, man. You're really getting around now, man.
Yeah, I'm trying to do my thing, and it's always a pleasure hanging out with you guys. But I'm trying to keep busy.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And the man who I guess might be one of the most ubiquitous hockey pundits out there right now. He's from Sportsology.com, Off the Post Radio. He's a regular contributor to Locked On Flyers, and also he's on SiriusXM NHL Radio all the time, among many other things. You know him as Russ Cohen. Russ, thanks for joining us tonight.
Hey, thanks, Isaiah. Thanks, Chef. Jim, nice to see you.
Good to see you too, Russ.
Yeah, it's great to have you guys all along here. So the Flyers have gone 1-2 since we last spoke. They're 5-6-1 overall. Some of the players that we were real excited about, young players, some have started to plateau a little. We're going to get into that a little bit. So the Flyers lost to Buffalo 5-2 in a game they probably outplayed the Sabres. Then they go into Buffalo and wax them 5-1, who didn't actually play quite as well. And then, of course, they lost to the Kings on Saturday in a game that was a real dud. And last night, the San Jose game. So actually, the Flyers are 1-3 since we last spoke. So, Russ, the Flyers lose last night. Let's talk about that. There's two elephants in the room. One is named the Sharks, and the other is named Morgan. So you pick which one you want to talk about first.
Well, I mean, I'll talk about the Sharks first because, I was on Sirius earlier that day and said that I felt like the Sharks would get their win within the next two games, either the Flyers or the Oilers. And then, McKern tried to say, oh, so you're saying the Flyers are going to lose. I'm like, I didn't say that, but I just have a gut feeling it'll be that game or the next one. I just kind of knew the Sharks were going to do it, and I knew that both teams were susceptible. So why were the Flyers susceptible? So the record's one thing. The game against the Kings was another. The need for this road trip, but not like the urgency to fix it all, was kind of like something that was sticking with me. I just had this feeling like they weren't trying to fix it all at once. And then I saw a quote from John Tortorella that basically said, hey, sometimes going out to eat with the dinner with the guys and bonding is better than practice. And my thought was, well, when you're bad, why can't you do both? You've got all these days off in between on the West Coast. So all those things kind of led me to believe that they were susceptible to lose that game, and not having Morgan Frost in there, who, is probably one of the few guys that could keep up with some of the speed on that team. And that's the other thing. Like they knew Duclair is a guy. Anthony Duclair has faced them many times before, and facing them for the first time the way they were working against him. Blackwood, same thing. He has faced the Flyers many, many times before, and it didn't seem like they had an idea of how they really wanted to go with him. No, he had a very good game, but it's not like that was why they lost. I don't think that's why they lost. Those two things, we'll get into the power play and everything later, but there is the way that they're deploying some players. There's a certain way that they're playing some players that I don't think is the right way.
Okay. James, you want to expand on that?
Yeah, so Russ's last point there about how they're deploying some guys, I mean, totally agree. Morgan Frost comes back into the lineup for, I think it was 3 or 4 games, and they go out west and he comes out. Tortorella said it's because Gauthier came in, but I feel like they could have found another guy to come out of the lineup for Morgan Frost. I didn't so much understand that. The first time he was benched, I think it was 6 or 7 games, I thought there was an argument there. Okay, the team's somewhat playing well. I at least understand the point. But to take him out again after he was playing okay, he's creating chances, creating offense. The goals didn't come, which happens. To take him out again, I thought was a little unnecessary. I still don't quite understand it. I think when you put things into perspective a little bit, the Flyers came out, they looked fun again. But I think maybe we got a little bit too far ahead of ourselves where they're going to have games like this against the Sharks. That won't be the last one this year where, they're embarrassed, I think. They're not a good team yet, and the Sharks, I don't know if we want to say they were hungry, but they were due, right? And nobody wants to be the team that opens up with, 12 or 13 straight losses, something like that. So it was unfortunate.
Yeah, that's the thing in pro sports, and the Sharks aren't as bad. I was looking at this roster, and people were saying there are AHL teams that could beat them, perhaps, but that roster was not as bad as I thought it was when I saw them playing out there.
Though.
It isn't great. No, they stink. Okay, they stink on ice and off the ice. I don't know. I'm going to shower with these guys, but.
But
I'm just saying.
I did see something. I think it was Wayne Fish that posted it. When the Sharks got the first goal, I think the Flyers are 1-5-1 when they're down when they're down 1-0, and that's a sign of a bad team.
Yeah.
That is.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. But, Chef, I want you to weigh in here. They have a bunch of young kids they're kind of counting on to put the puck in the net that haven't really proven themselves over a year or two. I mean, you have Frost kind of broke through at the second half, kind of September baseball kind of season kind of thing going on. And Tippett showed me a little bit more than that. He's struggling. Forster hasn't hit the net yet, although he's playing maybe one of his – I only saw the first 2 periods, in all honesty, last night. He played some of his best hockey this past game. But if they're not – proven goal scorers, and this is by committee, you could understand if some of these guys go into slumps, this is what the Flyers are going to be this year.
No, like James said, we were kind of tricked a little bit. Well, maybe not, but we knew that the bottom was going to drop out eventually. I mean, I think we talked on previous shows that they're not as good as they looked like they were. They were just inspired. Figure about. This is about the same time last year when, conditioning, because they were a little bit more conditioned than everybody else. So it looked like they were flying faster than some other teams. And it's a little deceiving. For me, my biggest worry was, wow, we were seeing like a decent amount of goals first. And now all of a sudden, the younger guys, like you said, they're not producing. Forrester worries me the most out of all of them. And I agree with both what they both said about Frost. Yes, he should have deserved a bigger look the second time around. And I think that even if he doesn't go down, I don't think he needs to go down. I just think he needs a reset and sit on the side for a couple games. I think Forrester needs to really work at where he's going to be, because I did see a little bit of the game. I like you, I couldn't stay awake. I just fell asleep after, and I usually am amped up for those games, but I was watching it, and the game last night, the first period was sloppy and uninspired. I mean, it seemed like everybody just was like, no, we're not going to play any semblance of defense in the first 12 minutes of the game, and it was all over the place. Exactly.
They couldn't win a face.
They couldn't get out of their zone for a while, too.
The face-offs, I mean, it really, when it mattered, Couturier was getting killed. He got killed on the offensive zone face-offs when it was 6-on-5. But the 6-on-5 is an extension of the power play, which still stinks. I do want to say this, though. I mean, for 2 years now, I've been saying they need to hire a shooting coach. They have a skills coach. They don't have a shooting coach. Back in the day, Claude Giroux hired his own shooting coach, and his goals went up. Right now, there's 3 guys that could use it. Cam York, Owen Tippett, Tyson Forster. They all have the same problem. They all miss the net a lot. Tippett's missing the net more now than last year. Now, he got a lot more goals last year, but he also had like games where he had 27 minutes as a forward, which is, inordinate. So when you balance that all out and starting him off on the third line, which they never should have started him off on the third line, because, at the end of the year, they were making him a centerpiece of the team. Now all of a sudden guys come back and he's on the third line. That shouldn't have happened. And I don't think that started off the season well for him. I do think Forster could use a reset for a game or two. There's no question about it. But while he's doing that, it would be nice if someone could go over shooting techniques with him and try and get him out of his head, because he's got a great shot. But I don't think that enough of that is going on. And so Cam York, right? I looked it up, and we know he's the second power play guy. He gets around 46 seconds a power play shift. He's got the 1 goal. He's taken 20 shots. As bad as his shooting percentage was last year at like 4.8, he's at 5 now. To me, that experiment should be over. They should bring up Ronnie Attard, who I do believe plays better at the NHL level than he does at the AHL level. There are some guys that do that, and he kind of proved that last year. He has a great shot, and his shot would hit the net a little more. I guess Chef gave up on my argument, but that's all right. But Ronnie Attard would hit the net and create more chances than Cam York. Cam York has a lot to learn about getting his shot on net. Like going back to the NTDP days, and I went back and looked, and I've spoken to people. I speak to people all the time. He was a great distributor, which he still is, but he wasn't a big-time shooter. He didn't have to. He had a lot of other guys that would shoot the puck. That, you take him off the second power play, maybe that eases up his minutes. I mean, the other day, he's playing 22, 23 minutes. Sanheim played 27, which is inexplicable in a regular game. I mean, you have Louis Belpedio up there playing 10, right? To me, you might as well have Ronnie Adler up there playing 15 because he's going to play some power play. The only reason Belpedio is up there to play 10 because it's 10 forgettable minutes that John Tortorella doesn't have to worry about. Basically, Belpedio doesn't hurt you, but he doesn't really help you. You might get one shot on net, but Tortorella doesn't have to think about it. And that's part of the not right coach for the rebuilding team, because there are other guys that can get worked into this lineup based on what they have up there. And we're at the point in the year now where you can't give me the argument that, well, they might be a playoff team. They're not going to be. So at some point, they will make a decision to start getting more guys in the lineup, but John's not going to be the guy to do it. It's going to have to get pushed from management, and it hasn't yet.
Well, here's the deal. There is this gap and that they're trying to bridge, or this fence that they're trying to straddle between being a team that culturally was broken from the Hextall days, a team that didn't have a work ethic. And Tortorella was the right guy to instill that. And he did a good job. And you saw the difference. But the other question is trying to bridge that to developing these kids and having the patience and discipline to not scratch some guys, for A, because that's what you need to do in a rebuilding year. And B, Jones and or Briere needs to be in his ear, like, okay, if he's not the future, and we all agree that this guy's not the future, and I'm talking about Morgan Frost in particular, we can't just sit him down. People want to know why. They want a communication, and we're not getting that either. So there are some decisions that need to be made. But Tortorella's got 2 more years left on his contract, and Michkov and Gauthier, the 2 most important pieces that they have currently, and whoever else they might draft going forward, are going to be less impacted by John Tortorella because he's at that age they're not going to extend him. So the question becomes, at this point, culturally, this is the first little bit of mini crisis that the Flyers have right now with some of these guys that are plateauing and the whole thing with Morgan Frost. And Jim, why don't you weigh in on that and give me your thoughts?
Yeah, so if I can go back and talk about York for a second.
Sure.
And, you guys can disagree, but I'm kind of going to lump Sanheim in with this as well. I caught a lot of crap on our show for saying this about these 2 guys is they don't really have a shot that can get the goal, or at least in my opinion. And Russ, it kind of sounded like you felt the same way, at least about York.
Yeah, I mean, Sanheim will get a few in. He's not ideal either, but they don't have a lot of options.
Sure, exactly, and that's the issue. So, if these are your guys that are quarterbacking your power plays, the likelihood that they're going to look for a pass instead of a shot is pretty high. The Flyers' power play is very, very predictable, right? They have the distributors at the point. They have the shooters, at the top and the bottom, and Tippett, Forrester, whatever. You know what they're trying to do. It's very simple. You don't have to worry about a shot coming from the point, because York's most likely not going to get it to goal. Sanheim maybe once in a while, but that's what I think is the issue. They don't have a defenseman that has a booming shot. They don't have a guy that you have to worry about on the back end. Maybe that's, I hate to even say this, nothing against the guy, but maybe that's Ristolainen. I don't know. Maybe they're missing him. But I just wanted to make that point about York, because I think everybody had high hopes for Cam York this year, and we'll see. I don't want to talk negative about a guy because there is potential there, but I wasn't as high. I wasn't as excited, I think, about Cam York or whatever this year, as far as potential power play and numbers and goals and this and that. And then Morgan Frost, right? He should be. The team is going to have trouble creating offense. Some nights they look very vanilla, right? They have a lot of shooters and not really any distributors. Bobby Brink's playing well. Didn't notice him a whole lot last night. 8
only
points.
Played 10 minutes.
He only played 12 minutes. 10 minutes. There you go. That's why.
Why?
I have no idea.
Nobody knows.
Didn't make sense. I mean, you need offense, and you're playing the guy 10 minutes, and you're not playing the other guy at all. So usually I'm a Torts backer. But I feel we have the right to question him as well. And some of the decisions that he made last night didn't make sense. So I wanted to know why. And I don't think anybody really questioned him on why certain things happened.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. But let's
I
drill
have an
down.
idea. Okay, I'll let Chef go.
Yeah, you go ahead, Chef. Go ahead.
Oh, I would say this. There are options for them to get looks for, on the power play. It's just with the personnel, like there is somebody who is capable of getting a shot through, and that's Andre. Unfortunately, he didn't. When camp started, I was there. When development camp started, I was there. All that stuff. He didn't separate himself from anybody, and because of the injuries, he kind of got lucky and got through to start the season, but he didn't do anything to keep himself there. I mean, now this is where you have somebody that's got a totally different idea and view of the ice that isn't contaminated with what the team usually does. And I think if you have Sanheim out there, you're going to have the same old you would have from all the other things, because he's just going to emulate what's been there in the past. York is kind of getting, I want to say constricted too into that same pattern. I would like to see something different happen. I don't know if they have that in the system like Russ was talking about. This is something that it's not going to be fixed unless you get outside personnel in. I don't think this is.
Idea.
Go ahead.
I do. Because you guys tasked me with fixing the power play. And so I took that to heart, even though I don't get paid for it. I'm going to try.
Go ahead.
And so my thought is, I remember Danny Briere playing on a Buffalo Sabres team that had all forwards on the power play, right? Was I crazy?
No.
With Chris Drury and those guys, right? And I was thinking, now, Couturier used to be a guy you could play at the point, but now I get it, the foot speed is not great, so you wouldn't do that. But Atkinson has great foot speed.
Yep.
Why not play him at the point? Have Couturier on there. You could have Cates on there. You could have guys that are defensive and offensive too. I mean, because again, Frost would be perfect to be on a 5-forward power play, but that doesn't seem to be an option. But I think they have some of the guys that could do that. Would they do that? Would Rocky Thompson ever do that? I don't think he would, but I would try it.
Yeah, I think that the deal is this. It's when power plays go bad, even the best ones, what's the advice they give you? Just get it back to the point, try get the puck through, get the pucks to the net, and then the forwards jam and get greasy goals, and they get their confidence, and everybody relaxes, and they start passing the puck, and then the flow, whatever scheme they have, tends to work more. But you have to put some behind the goalie.
To the net?
And exactly. And they don't have guys that can get the puck through. And that's one of the biggest issues, which, calls to mind why you're talking about bringing in Rodney Adder, because he's got a rocket. So much so they deploy him on the left circle on his off wing in the exhibition games. But obviously they don't feel good about his defense.
It's either Adder or, ultimately you could go with the 5-forward one and then let Adder be on the second power play. You could do that.
Yeah.
The first power play doesn't have to run a minute 30. If the first power play goes bad for me, I'm taking them off in 40 seconds and I'm going with the next one. I don't really care who power play 1 is and power play 2 is, but I do feel like they should try all the forwards, because if nothing else, they haven't tried it. I keep hearing the players saying we're trying different looks, we're trying this, but you're not trying that. And that's something that the GM had some experience with.
Yeah. And there's no threat. Like Jim said, when that puck's at the point, you would know that they're looking to pass it. They're trying to. It's like it's a hot potato. Like, get it off my stick, And especially the last 3 games.
That's why they can play the edges and block off the edges, because they're not worried about that shot.
And I don't get it, because in the beginning of the season, especially with Konecny, I think he's got three goals from being right in the front, because everybody was spread out. The shot would go down low. Somebody pick it off the wall, feed him in the slot, and he got 2 goals out of it. I know that I know that. And that's what's so infuriating about it, is because when the shots get through, they've had results. It's just, there's no, when that puck gets out there, there's nobody on the point that's going to be a threat for a shot. They know it's going to get dished off.
Yeah, and Cam York makes Matt Carl seem like Shea Weber in comparison. It's just he definitely needs a shooting coach.
Well, I feel he does, but I feel bad because he's miscast. He can never play top line defense. He was never going to, never ever ever. He's going to be a second pairing guy, and that's what he is, and he's good at it. So at some point, just put him back on the second pairing. Like, at this point, even if you have to, and again, they're developing Sean Walker, but that's not going to help him for the future. They're going to trade him at the deadline and maybe they'll get, instead of a 4th round pick, they'll get a 3rd or maybe even a 2nd. But they're developing a guy that, is not going to help them. You could help Cam York by not having him struggle on the top pair anymore, because he's not going to beg out. He's too much of a good guy. He doesn't believe, he believes he can do anything you task him to do. And last year, I think he proved that he could play second pairing, but take him off the top pair. It's just not right. Like, it's just too much of a struggle.
Do we even have a timeline for Ristolainen at all? I have not heard anything.
No,
he's been hanging out with Ryan Ellis from what I hear, but that's just a rumor. I don't know.
No timeline at all. So that's why. So, I think the York experiment up there should end.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Flyers
he's a second pair guy. Sorry.
Yeah. And you're right. With him, he's playing his off wing too, right? So, his offside. So, I mean, he's doing everything that's being asked. It's just, you can be as good as you can be, but sometimes you top out, and that's it. And it's no fault of his own. He's going to be a really good second pair guy, as long as the roles are being able to be fulfilled.
Well, that's the problem with the rebuilding team, Jim. It's when it's getting guys deployed in the proper roles, whether it's on the power play where the Flyers are like 29th in expected goals per 60, or whether it's on your forward lines or pairings, whatever. These are some of the problems that come up with the rebuild as guys try to carve out, where they belong in the lineup. And the coach needs to help them along by giving them a chance to get in different spots.
Totally. And I think Tortorella is a smart man. I think he's a great coach. But I still think it's okay to disagree with some of the things that he's doing. And for me, I look at Cam York, second pair defenseman. I start him out on the second pair. If he's playing well, I'll bump him up to the top. And then if he struggles, I'll bump him back to the second, because he knows he can be the second pair guy. His confidence is there. It's not going to be a big deal. If I start this guy out on the top pair and he's getting his butt whooped, and I bump him down to the second pair, now, in my opinion, it looks like a demotion. And I don't know if that will hurt a guy's confidence or not. Maybe it comes back over time as he gets more comfortable. But I think there's a way to do things with some of these guys. And I don't believe in, not that he's trying to fit a square peg in a round hole type thing, because but if a guy's struggling, do him a favor and, put him in the spot where he belongs, because you're only going to, I don't want to say, athletes are fragile, right? Like, these guys have massive egos.
Yep.
So if they struggle, their confidence is going to be shot quick. So they need to be put in spots where they can succeed, and all of a sudden their confidence goes through the roof. This is what I talked about on our show a lot when everybody's kind of pumping up York on our show. And I said, start him on the second pair. You need a second pair. Put him with Sean Walker, whoever ends up playing the right side. Put him where he's comfortable on the left, and let him play well on the second pair. You need a good second pair. To me, it never really made sense to put him on the top pair with Sanheim. I was never a huge Sanheim believer. He has been playing pretty well so far this year. But that pairing didn't make a lot of sense to me. And unfortunately, I think we're seeing that it's not a good pair.
Now, and let's not forget, Mark Stahl is out. And even though we're not really crazy about what he can bring at this point, he is the kind of guy that can play in different spots and he won't fall apart. He's okay for a group of games, and that option's not there right now. So that kind of throws things off kilter in terms of what their plans were, along with Ristolainen, which is even an even greater impact right now. So, Shep, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, well, I look at it like this. When we talked before about a leader on this team, I think this is, in situations like this is where your leader comes in. And maybe he's right. Maybe Torts is right in an aspect that there's not really a captain person material on this team yet, because somebody needs to sit here and be, like we were talking about, that rah-rah guy in the locker room here that maybe doesn't, like with the egos that James was just saying, everybody's fragile. Everybody does. And there's always all the good teams I was ever on growing up in any sport, any whatever. There's that guy And maybe Mark Stahl was that calming influence for the defense. But there's somebody on this team that's, well, maybe it's lacking, that person can sit there and right the ship when things are getting bad. When you sit there, that makes you, that you look to. Like, you know, when a goal's scored, who does everybody look to?
You mean if they like had a captain?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And maybe Torts is right that not naming one, or maybe he's wrong and they need one. They need to sit there and everybody say, this is our guy.
All teams need one.
Yes.
Because, like, not every guy wants to be a leader, right? But there always has to be one guy that, hey, even if it's his job, I'm going to be that guy, and others will follow. Like, just that will happen. It will happen naturally.
I think they're still in the formative stage in Tortorella's opinion.
Okay. It's a year and a half. It's too long. But here's another thing. I'm going to speak in food language now with the fourth line.
Okay.
The fourth line. So at the
pumpkin spice,
of the
right?
year, they looked like a decent hollandaise sauce, and now the sauce is broken. And you can't. Once a sauce is broken, chef knows you can't repair it. It's over. You have to throw it out. They have to throw out the fourth line. There is no use for this fourth line the way it's currently constructed, in my opinion.
Trust me, I've seen guys try to fix it with mayonnaise and everything else, and it just doesn't work, man. A little mayonnaise and some cumin. I'm like, what are you doing? It's yellow now, or turmeric or something. What are you doing? It stinks, and now it smells, and it's broke even more. It's curdled.
Yeah. Once they tighten that face, you know, like the facelift, once it passes a certain point, you can't let it go. You know, it's going to collapse. Now, the PhD line was a good idea for a while, and it met the muster of exhibition hockey and adrenaline-filled first 10-game slot. But I think, now this is when you have to take a look at Morgan Frost, see what we can do. Get Scott Lawton in the lineup. Paling is your backup. He's your kind of quad A guy, and see where we go. Russ, I don't want to keep you all night. I did want to we're going to get back to some of the other things with the Flyers. I did want to talk a little bit about updates.
I was going to say, if you keep me all night, you have a hell of a StreamYard account. Like, I don't know what the limit is for StreamYard. Like, can you go 5 hours? I don't know.
I've never pushed that button.
I know, me neither.
Well, Jim had you had a marathon Flyers podcast thing, like, for, what was that, 2 years ago or something?
Yeah, maybe when we did it was like WWF style or WWE style. We brought everybody in one by one or something.
I got on, and all the BSH people, like, man, they scrammed. But anyway,
Lord of the Rings extended version.
But yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about something Dan and I talked about last week, or last show we were on. That was the last week. Cutter Gauthier, 8 games played, 8 goals, 2 assists. He's got the good Cy Young thing going on. Michkov, 20 games played, 9 goals, 9 assists. And by the way, in the beginning of the show, I said the Flyers are 5-6-1 or 5-7-1. I didn't include. I wrote it all up before the San Jose game. So I'm sorry. So Cutter Gauthier, and to me, his game just screams power winger, shot. He's already got like an NHL shot, NHL release, and he's got that. If you want a solution on the power play, just put him in the right circle, right? And even a Flyers anemic attack, they could just work everything around a guy like that. And he passes the puck well enough. I've seen him, but I just don't see a center. And I'm wondering, this is the Tortorella factor in my mind, like his body positioning, stick positioning.
No.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
In an interview pre-draft that he wanted to play center, and he thinks he could and had in the past. So they're actually doing what Cutter wants. Now, my whole thing is, yes, you're right. He's got a great shot. It will work at every level. You do want to see more out of him, because as good a year as he has, as you're looking at like Macklin Celebrini, he's got 8 goals, but he's got 14 points. Right. And like Gauthier is never going to be Macklin Celebrini. He's not. But he could be a 30-goal scorer in the NHL. He does score a lot of power play goals. So you have to understand that that's something where we'll see what he does 5-on-5 in the NHL. That may take a little more, because you even saw, even with Cole Caulfield, took a little doing, because he was a guy that practiced angles all the time. And, it's different to score 5-on-5 goals in the NHL. But he wants to play center. This isn't on John. Now, when he comes up, will John put him at center? And he might come up at the end of this year after Boston College is done, and I don't believe he'll do that. At least not for this, for the little bit he plays this year, if he does.
Okay. What do you think what do you think his adjustment is going to be like? I mean, just seeing what you've seen of Cutter so far, like what are things to make it at center? I mean, just taking faceoffs aside, you can learn how to be. I mean, I think he's doing okay with that.
Faceoffs are good. His faceoffs are not bad. He always had defensive awareness. I think the hockey IQ has always been high. I think it's just a matter of, since it's not his natural position, he really is a natural left winger, that some things don't come naturally as far as playmaking. And you see that Dylan Larkin is a shooting center in the league, but Dylan Larkin is a better passer than Cutter Gauthier. So Gauthier is going to have to work on that. And he's going to have to, when he finds chemistry with guys, he's going to have to dish it once in a while. And he's not a selfish guy. He's not. I mean, like I said, a lot of these goals are power play goals. So 5-on-5, he is dishing it, but he has to become a little more deadly with that. And his speed's good. And I just feel like it's something that's going to mature in him, where the vision has to get better if he's going to be that center. If he's not, if he's on the wing, I believe the way he scores his most points is going to be on the wing. And that's just, I'll always believe that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Matvei Michkov had a little bit of a down period for a couple games. I think he was sick with the flu or whatever it might have been. But I mean, for the production relative to guys his age in that league, I mean, he's pretty amazing, and especially the way he can just turn something into nothing.
Yeah, it's no surprise. I mean, his battle was he wasn't going to get playing time with his other team, so it doesn't mean he's the best player in that league, because he's not. If he were, he would have stayed on that team. He would have worked with that coach, and he'd be the best guy in the league. Now, on the other team, they're letting him do what he wants, so he is going to score a bucket load of points. So what am I telling you? I'm telling you that he still has to mature, and he still has to round out his game. And it's good that the Flyers don't have to deal with that right now, because I don't know if they have the coach that would want to deal with that right now.
Yeah.
So it's good that that's happening over there. So everything's fine with Michkov. I'm not worried about it.
Great. So anything else for Russ before we let him retire for the night here?
Yeah,
yes,
I got a quick question. Of the other people they have drafted, like Bonk and Barkley, and who's a couple others there, what is there anything else that we could probably be pleasantly surprised to learn about in the farm system that's actually having a better than expected season?
I still think J.R. Avon's going to have a heck of a year now that he's healthy in Lehigh. I do think he gets overlooked. I think in Lehigh, Ethan Sampson kind of gets overlooked, but now that there had been all these injuries and such, he had gotten to play more. So I think those are two guys that do have a lot of ability that aren't top of mind maybe of Flyers fans to say, hey, these guys, can really do something and surprise you. And I think they're still going to.
Excellent.
Well, Russ, thanks so much for imparting your wisdom for the night. And where can people find you and your work and some of the other things you got going on?
You can find me, like I said, sportsology.com, full press hockey, and full press coverage is baseball. So I do baseball for them too, all year round. Sirius XM every Tuesday at 12:15 with Mick Kern. Off the Post Radio, that's every Saturday or Sunday. We go, we put it on YouTube, we put it on SoundCloud. EP Ringside, that's where 99% of my prospect coverage goes, and then the rest goes to my website. They're part of Elite Prospects, so look out there. I do like 2 or 3 articles a month for them, and then once every few months we have our draft videos. So we go over who's going to be in the draft and where we're ranking. We have these sessions that people seem to like. So those are the main things. And then I think I'm going to be working on like another writing project. Probably not a book, but a writing project. And I'll just leave it at that. So people could just kind of look out maybe for that in the next year.
Yeah. Excellent. Check it out.
Exciting.
All right, Russ, thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, guys. See ya.
All right, have a good night.
Later, Russ. Thank you.
Take care, Russ.
Yep. All right, gents. Any thoughts about some of the things Russ had to say, Jim, or do you want to?
No, I love listening to Russ. I think he's one of the one of the smartest guys around. Knows his stuff when it comes to prospects, that's for sure. And I thought it was interesting that he mentioned that stuff about York. Not only is he's a good second pair guy, but the power play stuff. This is my opinion. If you're an offensive defenseman that plays on the power play, you need to have a shot that can get to goal. And some of the guys call me crazy because what does that mean? Get shot to goal? It means get the puck to the net or get it to a spot where it can be deflected. It needs to be dangerous in some way. If you're not hitting goal or your shot's getting blocked, you're not getting pucks to goal. And if you watch Cam York, that happens a lot. So that's all. I just thought that was interesting that he brought that up.
Yeah, he can't find seams. If you don't have the hardest shot, find the seams. We saw that earlier from Zabula. Remember, he kind of he took his time, and I was on your show, and I was talking about he showed something that he showed a lot when he played for the Russian team and for the Russian juniors. We took his time, was impatient, saw that opening, and got the puck to the net. And in that particular case, it was a goal. And the Flyers don't have someone who can consistently do that, and that affects, like Russ was talking about, the coverages and all that kind of stuff. So there's no doubt about it. And it's that much of a problem. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, also too. I mean, you see them. Everybody wants that big booming shot. You don't need that big booming shot. How many times in the past, over the years, have you seen some of the best power plays out there that starts with a great wrist shot? That just nice low wrist shot, a little flick, and then boom, tic tac, or it can be deflected. It could be a pass. It could be a slap pass or anything. It doesn't have to be that booming shot. It doesn't have to be that, wrist, either Risto or Adder can take. I just get it at the net and get it through. But that's the most important thing. I think the wrist shot on this team, I think it's underwhelming all across the board.
Yeah, and I think overall, if you look at, I was looking up Money Puck. When you look at the number of high danger chances on this team, and it was guys like Atkinson and Konechny doing a better job this year, and even guys like Forster and Tippett just weren't getting any more than like medium danger and like a whole ton of chances, like above the circle. And they can score that, but that maybe after a tic-tac-toe kind of play. But if you're counting on that shot, like the other night, Forster's best chance I've seen so far, knowing I didn't see the third period last night, is I think it was a game in LA against LA or Buffalo where he had his stick right between the goaltender's pads and it almost went in. And like, that's where I said, I was thinking to myself, well, that's where Forster's got to get to right now until he can break, and probably more often in general. He can't rely on that shot. There's no doubt about that.
If you look, that was where Farabee was at the beginning of the season. Where was he? Right around the net. All of his goals, his first 3 goals, he had his puck, he had his stick on the ice, right by, right outside the crease or right near the crease. And that's where when you're going to have a hard time scoring, this is where these guys need to go. And if you want to get back into your flow, you need to do the basics first, and then you can expand on any kind of fancy passing or stuff like that. Just get back to the basics. That's all.
Yeah, because I remember Briere going into last year talking about some analytics and heat maps and stuff with Konechny going into last year and showing like how to get back to where TK was scoring when he had a couple good years before. And he obviously applied that. And this year, even more so. I mean, Konechny's really a different kind of player. He's been their best forward by far. But just, I wanted to move
What's he got, 9 goals now?
Like 9? If you just look, he's in 13 games, he's got 9 goals, 3 assists, 12 points. And the next closest 2 goal scorers are Farabee and Atkinson with 6 each. So, and some of these totals, when you Tippett's got 2 goals and Forster's is blanked. And, Bobby Brink had, 3 goals and they've had some chances, but especially Forster and Tippett, I see really frustration with them. And even Cates, 1 goal, 3 assists and 4, he's going to pick up a little bit, but I don't see him as a big scorer. And what the thing about Cates, Jim, is I do think a lot of people make this point. I think he's still more of a winger. I think Torts loves the idea of him as a center, but if you want more offense out of him, he'd probably be better on the wing.
So we were talking about Cates last night, and he's one of those guys that's kind of flown under the radar when, people bring up Tippett and Forster, and Noah Cates doesn't really get lumped into that, I think, because he played so well last year. And I'm wondering if he's struggling with more responsibility this year, because last year, nobody really expected much, and he ended up being a good shutdown guy and a guy that they didn't really depend on for offense too much. This season, he's being asked to be a little bit more offensive, and Sean Couturier is back, so he's like the top dog when it comes to centers and especially defensive forwards. So I'm wondering if Noah Cates is trying to find his place again, kind of thing. Like I said, he's been tasked with more responsibility and now needs to create more offense, things like that. So we're only 13 games in. I think the rule of thumb is, let him get to 20 games first. But I haven't been all that impressed with Noah Cates through 13 games. And I think he's flown under the radar a little bit.
I could see that. And you would think with Couturier back in the lineup, with the exception of a couple games, it actually would be a little bit easier for him. He would get, easier checking assignments and a little bit more concentration on his offense. But
great point.
It seems to have had the opposite effect. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was like last year, maybe it was like, hey, this is the task. He knew what the assignment was, where this year, maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll see. Maybe it's a sophomore slump. It's too early to say, but a goal and 3 assists in 13 games. I think we all had maybe a little bit more expectation than that, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Just one final major topic for tonight I want to bring up, and I want to give a big salute to Charlie O'Connor, who's at All Philly, Philly Sports, PHLY. That's his new gig. And he wrote a really good article about Tortorella going into this season. And I'm wondering, is it too much too soon? Because one thing, when the Flyers came out and have been doing well, and we were all kind of like, hey, they're really surprising us, along with the steps taken by the personnel, the kids that were showing some things and having people excited, was a strategy shift. And the idea that the Flyers wanted to take more chances, wanted to have more zone, controlled entries and exits, and that would generate more shots on goal and more higher level, what they call high danger chances. And Charlie's article showed that was seeming to work. Like shots on goal per 60 was up like about almost 5 shots. The high danger chances were up slightly, a certain percentage that was significant. Controlled entries that went from like 51 to versus the opponents, 51 to 44. I'm kind of screwing this up. Controlled entry percentage, and how that, versus the opponents, it was kind of almost the opposite last year, I think. So, because they were dumping the puck in, which can work. I mean, the Carolina dumps the puck in. You can, a lot of different ways to skin the cat. But the bottom line is the Flyers are trying to be more of a possession team, and it was working there for a while. And certainly they want to go in that direction. It's easier to play that way when you have players that have better puck skills. But it's interesting that in year 2, even though there wasn't really a great talent upgrade, that Tortorella decided to make this move. Jim, I'll go to you first. What was your feeling when you kind of absorbed that?
Yeah, so you could see that they seem to be more of a puck possession team through however many games, 12, 13 games. And then to see that the numbers kind of back that up, I thought was pretty cool. And then, I'm wondering, okay, well, was there a change in philosophy, or, apparently Torts is telling these guys to take more chances, to carry the puck, and, things like that. And, if you turn the puck over, he's not going to sit you. So, create. He's trying to, I think, instill confidence to, play with the puck, to try to create offense, take risks, things like that. Whereas last year it was more, let's, I guess, build a base. Like, let's be solid defensively. Let's do the things that we have to do first, and then let's go have fun. You know what I mean? So I'm wondering if the leash is a little bit longer this year, where these guys kind of have the drill down as far as how to be a responsible defensive team. Now this year, it's kind of let's take more chances, let's create more. And it's certainly more enjoyable to watch. I'll tell you that much, when these guys are pushing play and trying to create offense. And I mean, that's how you win in today's NHL, clean zone entries, things like that, puck possession. So while it may not be perfect now, I would feel confident saying they're on their way to being a good team. When that happens, I don't know, probably next year. But it's, I guess, for hockey nerds like us, it's exciting.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I'll piggyback what Jim said there, or Jim, James, whatever. I keep going back and forth. Sorry, man.
It's all good either way.
So I would say this. I think he's spot on with the whole take the chances kind of thing. Because look, last year he did it. Torts he did it very vocally with two players, and that would have been Konecny. I want to see him take more chances. I want to see him being the player that I think he could be. And he did it with Tippett, too. So there was a lot of free rope for both of them. In fact, they were getting so many damn minutes on the team that they were always in there. So I think he saw the success and the confidence that came out of that. And I think he's given it kind of down the line. I think there's a couple guys on the team that are benefiting from it. I would say Farabee right now is. I think you see him going to areas he never went to before. And I see that, especially with defensemen too. They might not always make the best play or the right play, but they're making plays. How many times this year have we seen, oh crap, it looks like it's coming up. And then all of a sudden, Zamula, mostly Zamula, who steps up, and all of a sudden now, whereas this team used to give away the blue line, they're not giving the blue line anymore. So how many times and I think that's where a lot of their attack, and I don't know what happened in particularly the last two games, it kind of fizzled. Their transition and their step-ups have kind of fizzled in the last two games. But one thing I will give them credit for, you're seeing it to where they are stepping up at the blue line and they're creating that turnover or that stop, and now you're going the other way. And that's that extra second or two where teams are changing, because we used to see it against the Flyers. They wouldn't get it in all the way deep enough, and they were caught on a change. Now it seems like they're catching more other teams in their transition game is good. So I would say that is the brightest spot that I've seen so far, and maybe that's contributing to a lot of the puck possession time. But also, too, I also say this. The last two games, it's been lacking. Something's been lacking in that whole thing, and I think if you look back at all the tape, you'll see that it starts right there at that blue line for them.
Well, I think when the Flyers are really going through that little, period where they were really impressive when they, took the Minnesota Wild. It's a dark horse, cup contender, really. They're not on the top of the list, but to say that I think the Wild have a chance, maybe make a trade. It's a good team, the bottom line. What were they doing? You saw that there were elements of the game that were very typical of successful Tortorella teams in the past. Excellent stick position, blocking, passing, and shooting lanes. You see how active their sticks are, and they're just like smothering teams. Also, the back pressure, when the guys are getting back and enthusiastically hunting the puck down and the player down, and they actually take the puck away from a guy emerging out of his own zone, or actually like in the neutral zone. And this is when they're on top of their game. And I just haven't seen that. It's almost like they've kind of fallen back a little bit. Then hockey is a game of momentum, but the season is a season of momentum. And right now, I think they're just in a little bit of a downslide. We don't want to panic in a rebuild year, but their problems scoring are going to pop up, because if some of these guys really aren't established as goal scorers, like it's different. If Konecny and a guy like Atkinson go through a slump, they're going to come out of it, right? Because they've done it. Now, you can't apply that to Tippett or Frost or Forster, as it doesn't have a goal yet this year. Or Cates, it's like, maybe they got lucky last year. Who knows what's going through their heads, right? So I think that's part of the problem. And Bobby Brink, he's never done it. So you're relying on 4 or 5, maybe as much as 6 guys that, if the confidence goes, it could really go. as opposed to, well, I'm going through a bad time. I can't worry about that. I'm going to work on my back checking. I'm going to be good in transition. Hey, I'm in transition here. I just turned the puck the other way, and now I'm putting the puck back in the net. And they don't have that slack of having enough proven goal scorers in the league that it's not going to work on them, which is all the more reason. It brings us back to the very beginning of the show, and that is with Frost. There's really not enough of an upside or a learning process for him at this point to dress him. As long as he's doing not to dress him, as long as he's doing all the other things they want him to do. He's never going to be as engaged. He's never going to be as up on his skates as they always want him to be. He is who he is. I don't think he has a future here. I think he's going after this year, maybe even during the year. But knowing that, the best thing for the team, long and short term, is play the guy, let him get his way back to a certain value, and go from there. And if the triumvirate of the guys in charge are in agreement that he doesn't have a future here, I've heard mixed signals, and both from very good sources, that it may be something that they're unanimous about. It may not be, but whatever. Once they reach that unanimous point, then they could make the move. But until then, Tortorella's got to have the discipline to say, let me put this kid in the lineup, because the alternative, it's really hurting the team. I mean, that's the way I look at it. Jim, any final word about that?
It's certainly doesn't look good, right? And excuse me, you mentioned they might be all in agreement on Frost, and I don't want to assume, but if we were to assume, it would be Tortorella, Briere, and if those two agree on Frost, then I think it doesn't look like especially the way that they're handling him, doesn't look like he has a future. I try to look at things from the coach's perspective with this, and like I mentioned earlier, it didn't really make sense to me to take him out. So I would have loved to hear, more from Tortorella on why he didn't play him. But I can only assume things, and maybe. So Morgan Frost, I still see him as sort of a puppy dog. I don't know that I've ever seen really emotion out of him, one way or the other. But I would love to see him angry. I would love to see him, get in the game and really stick it to Torts, right? And I think Tortorella wants that. I think he wants to bring that out of him. I think he wants to bring a little edge out of him, because, if we were to compare guys like Briere or Giroux to Frost, what do those guys have besides a lot of points? What do they have that Frost doesn't? They had a little bit of an edge to their game. Snarl. Yeah. So even Briere, where he wasn't the toughest or whatever, he didn't back down from the nasty stuff. He had an edge to him, and he was a stone cold killer with the puck, right? Like if he couldn't knock you out, he was going to bury the puck in the back of the net, and that's how he was going to do it. Where Frost, I don't think he has that killer instinct. I don't think he has that dog in him, if you will. Mm-hmm. And I think Torts is good with the psychological stuff. I think he's trying to bring that out. And I don't know. I'm not in the room. I'm not sure if Frost is kind of resisting that or what. But if they agree that, hey, he just doesn't have that in him, let's move on. That's kind of what it looks like to me.
Is this where like Briere or Jones needs to step in and kind of like create, kind of provide a little bit more of a narrative? Because communication was a big problem, obviously, with the previous regime. Or are we still in that stage where it's a little early? We don't want anybody stepping in and saying anything. Chef?
No, I don't think that's it. I don't think I can't imagine the way Jones is that there would ever be any kind of communication problem there. And I don't think so with Briere, because remember when he was a player, he was very opinionated, and he was one of those people, you could look back and hear that he was very vocal in the locker room. So I don't expect him to be unvocal now that he's in charge. And same thing with Jonesy. I just think at this point I think, Jim's on to something here. I think they're waiting for Frost to show. I mean, as of right now, you could say you want it, but you haven't really showed us anything. I mean, okay, you had a great end of the season. I think, what did you say earlier? September baseball. Yeah. It like when the games don't count, you're scoring goals left and right, and you're making plays. Now that you're actually playing for your spot, you're not making any contribution. He made 2 good passes in the game the other day, and he would have. And it's a shame because, I mean, it was a great pass to begin with when he has Forrester coming in on the right, and he sees him from behind. I think it was a power play chance too. And the funny thing about it is, if he buries that, we might not be having this conversation for both of them. But the funny thing is, though, okay, you don't get mad. Like, Konecny missed a shot. How many sticks did he break the last game? Like 2, 3, and he misses a shot. It's there. You can see it. That need. Morgan Frost might not have that. And I'm not, okay, every player is different. But you know what kind of coach you got. And if you don't have it, you need to find it, or you need to create it, because that monster is what helps you. In the chefing business, in the culinary business, the ones you see on TV are the ones that made the sacrifices and quite frankly, they're a bunch of assholes. And why? Because you need that type 1 personality to be the 12 to 15 guys that are going to be on network TV to 100 million people. And that's what you need. I don't know if he's a type B. I don't, like James said, you don't hear anything about him. And if you want to be that guy, you need to start being that guy.
Well, that reminds me, there's a famous drummer named Art Blakey, and he used to really push his guys on the bandstand. Famous jazz drummer. And there was this song called Night in Tunisia. And he had a lot of different horn players. And one famous section of that had Lee Morgan on trumpet. You're going to say, what does this have to do with hockey? Well, you could hear Art Blakey egging on his guys to play with more intensity. So the guy plays like a little bit of a riff, and then he cuts the note off, and you can hear Art Blakey get mad. What I mean? And every time, like when you were saying, I'm thinking, Art Blakey, get mad. And other times, like, play your instrument. And I'm like, this is what we're all talking about here is trying to bring a dog out, or see if there is any dog in Morgan Frost, because even if he improves, when we're in the thick of a playoff run, you're going to need that if you ever want to win anything and be anything, as like not only a good player, but a guy who could function in a playoff spot and be clutch. And the problem I always have with Morgan, watching him in juniors, so much of what he does, I said to myself, okay, that's not going to happen in the NHL. That's not even happening in the AHL. You know what I mean? You would watch goal after goal, play after play. And it's like, that was my big issue with him, and it wasn't a shock that with the gliding style he had, where he just could take his time, he's got to be up on his skates. And can he bring that intensity? So
he doesn't go to dirty spots either. But at least Briere, if that's the guy you wanted to be, you emulated, you're wearing his freaking number. If that's a guy, you look back at those playoff games, especially in Philly, and where was Briere at? He was in the dirty spots. And
even if it was behind the net, and he would have to sneak in front. He was like, "Oh, there it is." Remember that time he got it by Briere and just tapped him on the mask. You know what I mean? It's great.
Yeah, you want your guys to be a dick like that, because that's swagger. That's dropping the cojones on the table and saying, "Hey, guess what? You know what? I'm a little bit better than you," and you need that, whether you are or you're not. It doesn't matter. You need to have that attitude. That's why I was never on network TV, because I couldn't be that kind of guy. I'm not that type of personality, but I'm just a nice guy. Big fuzzy teddy bear chef,
I won't dispute this. But
Totally
Jim,
agree,
we're gonna kind of like wrap it there. But we definitely want to give you a last word and where people can find you on social media.
Oh yeah, so I'm on Twitter, or X, if you will, at Jim Ike, IKEHW. And you can check out our site, hwhockey.net. All of our episodes are on there, and maybe the occasional article or two.
Fantastic. Chef?
Well, you can find me on X too. Chef to Left B on X. And I'll argue with you about anything. I like a good argument, I could be that keyboard warrior that over to Twitter as long as I don't have to face you in person.
Now I got to bleep you twice, man. You're making my life difficult as it is. You couldn't stay connected. Now I got to do this anyway. Chef to the left B on the app formerly known as Twitter. Of course, you can follow the O&B Puckcast at O&B Puck at O&B Puck. Our backup plan is on Getter at O&B Puckcast at O&B Puckcast. Things are kind of settled down a little bit on X. The Flyers have a couple days off now. They play Anaheim and LA back-to-back Friday and Saturday. LA, at least that 10:30 game on Saturday is on a Saturday. Then they have a few days off. Apparently, they're going to Vegas, I believe, and then they play at Carolina on the 15th. A couple days off after that, and on the 18th, they play at home versus Vegas. So during that whole loop, there's some tough teams. People were probably expecting them to lose maybe every one of these games. And, because they got waxed pretty good by Anaheim. Sometimes this is when even the worst of teams find a way to win, like we saw last night with San Jose. So just a reminder, the O&B Puckcast can be followed on one of 12 podcast platforms, including Apple, Spotify, iHeart, TuneIn, Amazon Audible, Google. We have a YouTube page. Just plug in there, O&B Puckcast, a Facebook page. And if you could follow or subscribe, whatever is appropriate for that platform, we do appreciate it because it moves us up the charts when people are looking for Philadelphia Flyer podcast, which we are. And it takes that algorithm and moves us up. And it really is reflected in some of our latest listings and downloads. And we do appreciate that. So everybody, until next time. And Jim, thanks for joining us tonight, man.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for having me, guys. Always a pleasure hanging out. Two of the best.
Definitely. All right, everybody. With that, we're going to say take care.